Hey guys, it's Jenny. Welcome back once again to Solid Gold. As you probably remember, back in mid-March, I got 4 Discus from Uncle Sam's Discus, 2 classic leopard and 2 golden pigeon. Love them, they're beautiful. So that was 3 months ago, and unbelievably, because there's been so much other stuff going on, I haven't even given you guys like a real good update on these fish until today. I originally got 4 Discus with plans to get at least 4 more in the future. I haven't reordered and gotten more Discus yet, so it's just the original ones that I still have, and I did lose one of them, so I only have 3 remaining, but the 3 that are remaining are doing really well. I did have a couple minor issues, but nothing major. In the first 2 weeks of having these fish, I started to notice that one of them in particular was piping at the surface, and what that means, if you're not familiar, is the fish goes up to very close to the surface of the water and it kind of hangs right under the surface with its face up and pipes, meaning opening its mouth rapidly at that very thin layer of water that's right at the surface. Usually the reason why they're doing this is some kind of gill damage, and the gill damage could have been caused by ammonia burn or other, toxicity in the water. Could be caused by parasites. Sometimes the stress that they go through during shipping can cause some gill damage, and maybe the fish was just reacting to that. Could have been low oxygen as well. When you compare it to the rest of the water, that thin surface layer is going to have the most oxygen dissolved in it, and that's because the gas exchange happens at the surface of the water. So right under the surface is where there's going to be the highest concentration of dissolved oxygen. This morning I noticed that one of the Discus was piping at the surface, so what I'm going to do is test the water, make sure everything looks okay as far as the ammonia, nitrite, and nitrate and pH. And once I do that, if I do determine any issues, I'll do a water change. Even if I don't determine any issues, I think I'm still going to do a water change. The temperature in this tank is very high. It's about 83 degrees. And at higher temperatures, there's less dissolved oxygen in the water. So I am a little concerned that that may be happening. It's not all the fish though, it's just one of them that was doing it. So, it would be a lot more definitive if it was all of the fish doing it, but it was just one. So it makes it a little bit more of a process of elimination to figure out what's wrong. I immediately did a huge water change and tested the water before I did the water change, obviously, because if you do the water change and then test, yeah, anyways. Tested the water, did a huge water change. Ammonia is 0, nitrite is 0, nitrate is also 0. The water change was just done right before the fish were added and it was 100%, so that's why there's no nitrates built up yet. pH is about, I would say, 7.2, and this is the high range pH, which is showing the lowest value that the card reads. So if it's doing that, you need to also do the low pH, and this one is showing 7.2 on there. So the water looks great as far as that goes. It could still be low oxygen though. The water parameters looked absolutely perfect, and I considered that the high temperature of the water could have been inhibiting the dissolved oxygen level in the water because warmer water holds less oxygen. So I added an air stone as well after the big water change, and after that actually the issue was completely resolved. I didn't see any of the other fish doing the piping at the surface from then on. Right off the bat, my biggest frustration with these fish was their level of shyness. It was unparalleled to anything I've ever seen before. They would, the minute they caught a glimpse of me, even walking around in the room, they would freak out and swim in all different directions, banging their heads against the walls, splashing around. Luckily I had glass tops on the aquarium, and it made me feel really bad for them. And they also spent 100% of their time hiding behind the driftwood. Even when I wasn't in the room, I would peek, around the corner and try to look at them and see if they were swimming out and about, and very rarely would they ever even swim out and about. They were always stuck hiding behind that driftwood. I thought that, okay, they just need to get used to me, I just need to be patient. And so I tried to be patient for like a whole month and there was absolutely no improvement in them getting used to me or anything. They were still just as shy as they were from the beginning. Also, because of their shyness, I was having a really hard time getting them to eat. I was trying to feed them Discus pellets, and they would sometimes swim up to the food once it sank to the bottom and look at it, and sometimes even peck at it, but if they pecked at it, they would always spit it back out. I tried gel food as well with the same results. They just flat out weren't interested in it, and I think it was a combination of them just not being used to those foods and also them being so shy and scared in their new environment that they just didn't even want to eat. Finally, I decided to switch gears and I tried feeding them frozen bloodworms, which almost immediately they took to, and they were beyond excited about those frozen bloodworms. It was like the best thing that they had ever seen in their entire lives. So finally I found something that they would readily eat. And around that same time I started noticing what I probably should have realized from the very beginning, and that is the driftwood I had in there was too big and bulky, with too many hiding places in it for gunk, and just making it dirty. I also came to realize that just the presence of something large for them to hide behind in their aquarium made them more likely to want to hide and to feel like they needed to hide. When I took out the driftwood, their attitude, I mean, it wasn't like a day and night switch, but they definitely were much less skittish, much less fearful, and of course it also helped that around that same time I had discovered their favorite food, which was frozen bloodworms, and I was starting to feed them that. So they were starting to associate me with food, they were becoming a lot less shy and a lot less skittish and darty. They'll actually now even follow me back and forth from one side of the tank to the other like little puppies and beg for food the whole time. It's so cute. So anyways, I will say though that when I removed the driftwood from the aquarium, it stirred up so much gunk in their environment. Looking back, I really wish that I would have taken the fish out and kept them in a bucket while I was doing that huge water change and removing the driftwood. I'm so used to goldfish that they're not sensitive to water quality to the same extent that a discus is. So when I saw the gunk getting stirred up from the driftwood and the fish were swimming through it, I was a little worried, but at the end of the day I thought nothing of it, because that happens in my goldfish tanks from time to time as well when they need a really good cleaning, and the fish handle it perfectly fine. So, and almost my only experience with fish keeping up until I got these discus has been simply goldfish, and that's it. So, you know, I thought nothing of it really. But the very next day, after all that gunk had been stirred up, one of the discus started acting a little off. It was kind of swimming tilted at an angle in the aquarium with its fins clamped, and it would just swim around with like one of its pectoral fins. As soon as I noticed it, the first thing I did was do a big water change, this time not stirring up any gunk, okay, because there actually wasn't any gunk to stir up. It was the very next day after that initial water change I did where I removed the driftwood. Usually when you notice something a little bit off with one of your fish, doing a big water change will help turn things around to the point where they're acting normal again. I waited a little bit, the water change didn't seem like it was helping. He just kept going downhill more and more rapidly. He started fading, losing color, and within just a few hours of me noticing something was wrong, that fish was dead. But it is what it is, and I still have 3 healthy, beautiful discus to enjoy. Once they became less skittish and started to associate me with food, I tried feeding them the discus pellets again, and they still were not having it, but I knew that I couldn't just keep them on a strictly bloodworms only diet forever. So I tried emerald entree, figuring that it was still a frozen food, but not, you know, just protein. It had other things in it as well, and they took to that. They of course didn't like it as much as the bloodworms, but they did eat it, so that gives me hope that I can wean them on to other foods in the future as well. From here I'm gonna try gel food next, see if I can mix in a little bit of gel food, sneak it in maybe with their frozen food at the same time, and see if I can get them to eat that. And then from there I can actually start mixing in some of the dry pellets with the gel food when I make it, and hopefully they will start to eat the pellets as well. I don't mind feeding them frozen food or even gel food, but I would like it if I could get them to accept pellets out of convenience. You know, it's much easier to feed a fish pellets than it is frozen food or even gel food. And if I have to go away on vacation or something and I have somebody watching my pets, I want to make sure that it's easy and they can just feed them pellets if they need to. So that's the plan as far as food goes. So I have 2 golden pigeon and 1 classic leopard. The classic leopard and one of the golden pigeon are very close in size, and they seem to kind of swim together on their own, and then they kind of shun the third one, which is a little bit smaller than them. And I think that's normal for fish like this to have kind of a pecking order, and I think that's what's happening here. They're establishing their pecking order and, you know, who's the lowest on the totem pole. But I do feel kind of bad, and especially having removed their driftwood, it kind of removes any ability for the low guy on the totem pole to be able to hide out away from the other ones, because they'll even see him from across the tank sometimes and come zooming over to kind of put him in his place. So I do want to add something back into the tank besides just the 3 fish. I want to add some kind of visual barrier to break things up and maybe give them separate territories in a way. So I took a trip to one of my local fish stores because I had been in there a few months ago and noticed that they had some beautiful spiderwood for aquariums. Spiderwood is a lot different than what I had in the aquarium before. What I had before was Malaysian driftwood, which is a really dark, really heavy driftwood. They're usually big chunky pieces that sink right away, and they look really cool. They do release a lot of tannins though because they are so dark in color. So I wanted some wood in the aquarium that was a little bit thinner and more spindly, and the spiderwood is perfect for that. The spiderwood actually doesn't release as many tannins as the Malaysian driftwood will, but it will release some, and it also floats initially, so I want to soak it for a few days before putting it in the aquarium and then get it nice and waterlogged so it'll actually sink. And I know before I said that I didn't want to do any plants in this tank, I just wanted it to be a hardscape only with fish in it, but you guys might be happy to hear that now I'm actually leaning towards wanting to add some plants to the driftwood. Yes, I changed my mind. It tends to happen a lot actually for me. I really like how I have the Anubias Nana Petite plants tied onto the driftwood in my betta tank, and I want to kind of go with the same look in the Discus tank and get some cute little tiny Anubias plants and just tie them all over that wood and make it look really cool. While I was at this local fish store, I also found some fish that I just had to have. Probably about 6 years ago now, I had a 30-gallon planted tropical community tank, and one of the fish that I had in there was an albino longfin bristlenose pleco. I think I ended up keeping that tank only for about a year, and then I broke it down and rehomed all the fish that I had left because at the time I wanted to focus on nothing but my goldfish. I was going to school at the time and I had a part-time job, so I just couldn't keep up with all of my goldfish plus that community tank, which I wasn't as interested in as I was in the goldfish. Well, now I have a little more time to be able to spend on other types of fish other than just goldfish all the time, and one of the fish that I always said that I would have again someday is an albino longfin bristlenose pleco because they are just gorgeous. Every time I go into a local fish store, I always look for those fish because while I'm not necessarily looking to add new fish all the time, if I find one of those, I will buy it. So this particular pet store had a bunch of little tiny baby ones and I couldn't help myself. I picked up 2 of them, and I also decided, since you guys know from the beginning I've wanted to have a small group of tetras in this Discus tank as well. So I figured if I'm getting the plecos, I might as well get the tetras from the same store at the same time and quarantine them all together so I don't have to quarantine one group of fish for a couple of months and then add them to the tank, and then quarantine another group of fish for a couple months and add them to the tank. It'll go a lot faster if I can just quarantine them all at once and then add them all to the tank at once. So the other group of fish that I got is a group of 7 black phantom tetras, and aside from neon tetras many years ago, I've actually never had any other tetras before, so this is going to be really exciting for me. I mean, it's already been exciting because I always think of tetras as like, oh, they're just, you know, basically minnows, like they have no personality, they're just these tiny little fish that dart around and look cool in a school. But no, actually, even just observing them for a couple of days since I've had them, I've noticed like complex and interesting social behaviors between the different individuals in the group. Like some of the males will flare their fins up at each other and then kind of like dart towards one another and face them with their side and like flare out their fins, and it's just really fascinating and interesting to watch. So I've got my 9 new fish in a 20-gallon quarantine tank in the corner of my office. I had to move a bunch of things around to be able to get this aquarium to fit. It's ridiculous the amount of crap that I have here in my office right now. Come here, let me show you to all the nice people. No? Okay. I still do plan on getting more Discus to add to this tank. There's been so much other things going on between my trip to Japan and the disaster that happened in my fish room that I haven't even been able to give that any thought whatsoever. So, and it won't be until after my new fish in quarantine are through their quarantine period and added to the new tank that I'll even think about getting more discus, because I don't want 2 quarantine tanks going on at the same time. So that's all I have for you guys this week as far as an update on my discus goes, but I also wanted to talk to you guys about the fish room rebuild fundraising project that I have going on right now. The fundraiser is still open. I want to reiterate again that the whole reason for this fish room is not for me. If it was just for me, if it was just my hobby at this point, I would never have such a huge fish room. That would be a ridiculous amount of work for one person just to enjoy for themselves. The whole reason for this fish room is for you guys. I really want to be able to have an interesting space where I have lots of different aquariums that I can show you guys updates on and educational content about, fun content about every single week. So that's the whole reason for this fish room project. And just an update on the amount that we've raised. As you guys know, I'm asking for $25,000. I know it sounds like a lot, but when you start talking about construction, everything adds up really, really quickly. So we have to get this building up to par. And if you guys want more information on all the specifics of this, I'll put a link in the description section down below that goes over where the money is going to go and why so much is needed and all of that. But a really exciting update is that we have, as of I think yesterday, we have just surpassed the $10,000 mark. So that is super amazing. And I just wanted to take a minute to say a huge heartfelt thank you to each one of you who have donated, whether you've donated $1 or $100 or more. Everything is greatly appreciated and really goes a long way to help make this fish room a reality for all of us. That being said, this fish room is going to cost a lot of money, and I am not in a position in my life right now. I don't know if you guys know this, but making videos on YouTube doesn't make a lot of money, especially now with the adpocalypse that is happening, where advertisers are pulling out left and right. It's affecting every creator differently, but for me personally, my YouTube revenue is down 60% from what it was before this adpocalypse happened. I want to keep making these videos for you guys because I hope that it's adding value to your lives, even in some small way, and it's what I do. It's my passion, you know, but I can't personally afford to put money into this project right now beyond, you know, what I'm going to have to pay in taxes from the money that has been raised for this project. The tax burden on all this money that is being raised is going to fall solely on me, so I'm considering that like my contribution to this project. But aside from that, I can't really afford to put any money into this project myself. So we're at about the halfway mark for how much money is needed to be raised to really do this project. So we don't have what we need yet, but I've decided that I'm going to take a leap of faith and start the project anyways, because I'm hoping that once you guys see the progress that's being made, you'll get really excited as I am, because I know that like I have all these ideas for the project, and all these ideas are like floating around in my head. I have a really good idea in my mind of how this is going to look when it comes together, but I know that you guys aren't in my head, so you guys don't have that idea. So I think once you see things happening, you're going to get as excited as I am. So I'm going to take a leap of faith and get the project started with the money that we have raised already, and then if I have to stop and continue the fundraiser a little bit longer, that's just what we're going to have to do. But I want to get things underway. I want to get them started so that those of you who have donated can see a reward for what you have put in already. This week I am having a plumbing company come out and run a dedicated water line from my main meter out to the fish room so that so I can have better water pressure out in the fish room, because as it is now, my house has terrible water pressure. It would take days to fill up the amount of aquariums that I'm going to put in this fish room, literally. So I'm just going to have a dedicated water line run from the main hookup at the city back to the fish room so it can bypass all the pipes in my house and get better water pressure out there. So that's going to be the first step, and it's happening this week. I will give you guys updates as I have them and as things are starting to happen and come together. I think it's going to be really exciting. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this update on my discus. I'm certainly loving them. I'm not regretting getting them like I was in the beginning when they were really shy and skittish. I love having them. They're great fish, and I would recommend them to anyone. They're awesome and they're beautiful. Everyone that comes over to my house loves them because they're beautiful. And if you want more information on my fish room rebuild project, I will put a link in the description section below that'll have all the details and all the backstory behind what happened, and there'll be a link there for where you can donate and help contribute if that's something you want to do. Thanks for watching, everyone, and until next time, stay gold. Me woman, me change mind.